Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Purudikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Purudikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad-gītā ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. We will be on page 500 today. Yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On the 6th day of February 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad-gītā as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the 11th chapter entitled The Universal Form. Text number 53 at the top of page 500 in most of your books, I think. Oh, Prabhu, please sit on this side. Is it okay? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's a seat for you right there. Naham Vedair Na Tapasa Na Danena Na Chejaya Shakya Evam Vidho Drashtum Drishtavan Asimam Yatha Naham Vedair Na Tapasa Na Danena Na Chejaya Shakya Evam Vidho Drashtum Drishtavan Asimam Yata Naham Vedair Na Tapasa Na Danena Na Chejaya Shakya Evam Vidho Drashtum Drishtavan Asimam Yata Naham Vedair Na Tapasa Na Danena Na Chejaya Shakya Evam Vidho Drashtum Drishtavan Asimam Yata. No, you want to try it? Naham Vedair Na Tapasa Na Danena Na Chejaya Shakya Evam Vidho Drashtum Drishtavan Asimam Yata. Naham Vedair Na Tapasa Na Danena Na Chejaya Shakya Evam Vidho Drashtum Drishtavan Asimam Yata. Antonella. Naham Vedair Na Tapasa Na Danena Na Chejaya Shakya Evam Vidho Drashtum Drishtavan Asimam Yata. Jessica? Naham Vedair Na Tapasa Na Danena Na Chejaya Shakya Evam Vidho Drashtum Drishtavan Asimam Yata. No? Okay. Okay. So we'll do word by words. You can just read along. Na, never. Aham, I. Vedai, by study of the Vedas. Na, never. Tapasa, by serious penances. Na, never. Danena, by charity. Na, never. Cha also. Ijaya, by worship. Shakyaha, it is possible. Evam vidaha, like this. Drashtum, to see. Drishtavan, seeing. Asi, you are. Mam, me. Yata, as. Translation. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, the form you are seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can see me as I am. Purport. Krishna first appeared before his parents Devaki and Vasudeva in a four-handed form, and then he transformed himself into the two-handed form. This mystery is very difficult to understand for those who are atheists or who are devoid of devotional service. For scholars who have simply studied Vedic literature by way of grammatical knowledge or mere academic qualifications, Krishna is not possible to understand. Nor is he to be understood by persons who officially go to the temple to offer worship. They make their visit, but they cannot understand Krishna as he is. Krishna can be understood only through the path of devotional service, as explained by Krishna himself in the next verse. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, it's important to understand this verse in context, as all verses really. The chapter began by Arjun's asking Krishna, more or less the beginning of the chapter, asking Krishna to show him his universal form. Now, the universal form appears in different ways. In one sense, you'll find in the Bhagavatam, the second canto, and other places, that it's possible to see this world as a manifestation of God. And one way of doing it is to see, okay, look at the sun and the moon, and you see, oh, this is like the eyes of the Lord. The rivers are like the veins. The mountains are like the bones, you see? And so you see what everyone else is seeing, but you see it in relation to the divinity, that there's a person behind everything. And it's much like when we first begin Krishna consciousness, begin the Bhagavad-gītā, you'll see that the first lesson is to understand the difference between the soul or the self and the body. The first thing I learned, I remember the first day you move in, or just hang out with the devotees. Prabhu, you're not that body. You're a pure spirit soul. And this is really what Krishna is teaching at first. So how do we intuit that? What does this all mean? Well, what Krishna he has this verse, in the third verse he speaks to Arjuna in the second chapter. And he says, Dehinosmin, no, maybe it's not I think the third verse. Dehinosmin yata dehe komaram yovanang jana tata dehantara prapti dhiras tatta namuyati. Now, I know that didn't probably mean much to many of you, but what it means is that just as a child is born and grows up, and then grows into a young man or young woman, and then an adolescent, and then youth, and then middle age, old age, and similarly, then there's death. So there's kind of a little arc there. But the soul, the consciousness in the body stays the same. When the consciousness is very rudimentary, the child will think, oh, I'm 5 years old, or I'm 3 years old, and learning this word, that word, as my elder brother, like that. So there's a rudimentary consciousness. But as we've all experienced, gradually you learn things, you learn more words, you grow, you have a different identity. You're playing out in the field with your friends, you might be playing baseball or whatever, it's a different world. You're growing up. Then, school happens, that's a whole different thing. So gradually you're maturing in your mind, you know more things, and your body is changing. But it's the same person. It's still a sense of I. You have the same name, your mother, your parents, your brother, your sister, they know you as the same person. But clearly your body is changing. So you're staying the same. You're the same person, the knower of all of these things, the conscious being there, but the body is constantly changing. So you, the person, are different from the body itself. Another way of understanding this is that we say my hand, my foot, even my mind, my body. So who is that person who is saying my? It's different from the body itself. That's the soul. That's the conscious being. And what Krishna says in the second chapter is that conscious being is never born and never dies. All of us here in this room, we're eternal. Now, we're not going to be eternal in these bodies. Clearly that the body will one day cease to exist. But we should know that we will not cease to exist. And what we do, what we choose to hear and say and learn in this body, and the activities we perform will determine our next incarnation. Hopefully it'll be a human being, but it may not be. All those cats and dogs and birds and millions of insects, even the plants, they're also alive. Their consciousness is very, very rudimentary, but there's a living entity in there, an Atma, irreducible, very, very tiny, but conscious. So that's a revolutionary concept, because first of all, it should broaden our perspective of what's important in life. If we're simply dealing with how we can improve our material situation related to this body, then that's a tragic waste of the human life. Because eventually we're going to lose it. Whatever we may gain in this body, whether it's wealth or influence or prestige or property, whatever it may be, it's all very ephemeral, very temporary, and eventually we lose it either in this incarnation or at the time of death. There's a statement Krishna makes in the previous chapter where he says, Mrityu sarva haraschaham. As death, all devouring death, I take everything away from everyone, whatever you may have. But we don't cease to exist. So what happens? The subtle body, it's important to know that we have actually two bodies. We have the body that we commonly call the body we see, but we also have, who can deny it, a mind, intelligence. There's different. The mind is kind of connected to the senses and directs the senses and decides if it's pleasurable or not. But the intelligence, especially in the highly developed human intelligence, makes a judgment. Is this good to do? Okay, then let's figure out a strategy by which we can attain more of this. Is this bad? Let me get away from it, and figure out how to do that. So the mind, especially the intelligence, especially in the human form, is highly developed. The cats, the dogs, we can invite them to come in here, but even if they wander in, they're not going to get much out of it. They can't understand the language. It's just not there. They have a mind, they have an intelligence, but it's much more rudimentary. So what does this all mean? It means that what the Vedic wisdom is saying through the Bhagavad-gītā and other books of knowledge, which we have our spiritual master translated and available, is that this human form is a special opportunity for us to end this process of transmigration of the soul, which is not pleasant, because we have to face old age, disease, and death. I'm pretty old right now, and I'm starting to get frail, and it's not we've been through it before, but we forgot, But there's two choices. You can get old and get sick and die, or you can die prematurely. Thanks a lot. It's like, would you prefer hanging or electrocution? You have this choice. So the point is that material life is fraught with these dangers and with inevitable suffering. I won't go into detail, but I think we all have a pretty good idea. The threats, and some of them are realized, and it's not. So is there a solution to that problem? And the Bhagavad Gita says yes, there is a solution. We can regain our original status of eternal life, and not only eternal life, but full knowledge and ever-increasing bliss. Sounds like a pipe dream, It is a pipe dream on this platform, on the material platform. But there is a whole other existence, the spiritual world. And all religions have some description of that or some invitation to that. Is that we can achieve, go back to the right hand of God. We can stop the suffering. We can go to heaven. This isn't all there is, this world of suffering. So in this Bhagavad Gita, now we're in the 11th chapter. A lot has, of course, been said previously. But that first lesson kind of sets the foundation for everything that follows. Because the point is, well, how can we act with our senses, with our mind, with our intelligence, in such a way that we can actually traverse the path which leads ultimately out of this bondage of material life and return, Prabhupada's immortal phrase, back home, back to Godhead. That is our home. We're exiles here. We don't belong here in this world of relativity, of time, of eventual decay and death and rebirth and all of this in which we've been on for millions of years. So the Bhagavad-gītā, as well as all other genuine Vedic literature, and especially what Srila Prabhupada has given us the essence of it, gives us a program for traversing that path. It's called the Bhakti Marga. Marga means path in Sanskrit, and Bhakti means the process of devotional service, centered on sound, that Hare Krishna mantra. It is a benediction for this age especially, an easy way to purify the consciousness and begin to sense one's eternal identity and act in such a way. So back to our specific verse here. So this has been a kind of a special chapter in which Krishna showed, because he normally, you see, as you may see pictures, or you know, he has a very human-like form, very young, very attractive. But this universal form that he showed is a different kind of universal form, where he's super powerful. He has thousands of hands and thousands of arms and heads. At one point, because they're on a battlefield, this whole conversation takes place on a battlefield before a very consequential war that's about to be fought for the rule of the earth, whether it's going to be saintly or demonic. And Arjuna, of course, is on the saintly side with Krishna. So Krishna shows this universal form, which is kind of frightening to Arjuna. Arjuna is his friend. He has a friendly relationship with God, and is birth after birth. But this manifestation of Krishna, very huge and very frightening and annihilating all of the soldiers on both sides, puts him in a different mood. This is not the Krishna he knew. You know, and he apologizes for dealing with him in a friendly manner. Oh, I disrespected you like that, you know. So finally he asks, okay, because he requested it, that's enough. Please show me your original form. And so he comes back to the four-arm form and finally the two-arm form. And this Krishna says, you can't see this form of mine, his original form, which is very human-like. We actually have a God-like form. God's original form is human, and so the non-believers think, oh, that's anthropomorphic. You needed someone to believe in, so you created a God with a human form. But actually, we have a form that's similar to Krishna's, the beautiful two-handed form. So that's what Krishna's saying about that particular form. That in the previous verse, my dear Arjun, this form of mine you are now seeing is very difficult to behold. Even the demigods are ever seeking the opportunity to see this form which is so dear. The form you are seeing with your transcendental eyes can't be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penance, meaning austerities, and by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can see me as I am. And all of these are kind of ordinary means of practicing religion. Charity and austerity and all of these things. But they can be part of bhakti, but the essence of bhakti is really to cultivate one's love and devotion for God. And that's what Krishna is going to say in the next verse. That I reveal myself only to those who have developed loving devotion for me. And that's what Bhakti Yoga is all about, and especially this branch of Bhakti Yoga. And that's why so much of it is very personal. You'll see when the deities, you saw the deities this morning. I think you were here. And I don't know if you've ever seen the deity form. They're very attractive. And you know, it looks like, oh, these are stone statues. But actually, when we realize that God is all powerful, He can reveal Himself even through a stone statue. You know, and it's not stone anymore. It's very esoteric, but it works, and it's real. And so here, this is Krishna himself, again showing Arjuna his all-attractive two-handed form. Now, he doesn't have a flute there on the battlefield. That wouldn't be appropriate. But, He has this Sudarshan Chakra, he has the weapon. He's not actually fighting, though. He's taken on the role of Krishna's servant as a chariot driver, which is also amazing. He's God serving his devotee, you know, rather than the other way around. But the idea is that if we practice the simple process of devotional service has been given, centered on the chanting of the name and doing practical services for Krishna, there's a whole science to it. We have books about that. Then that's how Krishna, he's most attracted to that. And he reveals himself in proportion to the love and devotion that we develop. So it's very appropriate. The next chapter a very short chapter. This one is quite long at 55 verses. It's only 20 verses, but it's all about bhakti. It's called Bhakti Yoga, and it's a very, very sweet chapter. It's kind of the, after the Wagnerian scene of this universal form with really a frightening scene. It's very peaceful, and it's all about, devotional service. So any questions or comments on this verse? Okay, wait, but we have the mic there. By the way, I don't know if you know, this is going on YouTube and Zoom, so we speak in the mic.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
So, you mentioned the consciousness remains the same, but I have a quick question that we also say in general terms that we are getting consciously evolved. Let's say we are getting more mature, we are getting more spiritual, so we are getting more conscious about,
I didn't say the consciousness remains the same. I say that the consciousness is always there as a factor. That's the actual person. We are the conscious being who has consciousness, and that's irreducible.
So soul and consciousness is the same thing?
Yeah, the soul. What Krishna says is Avinashi Tadvidiyena Sarvamidam Tatam, that which pervades the entire body can never be destroyed. So that's what's irreducible. But the soul doesn't pervade the body. The soul is in one place, but pervades the body with consciousness, with its consciousness. So the soul is the conscious living entity, part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna is the supreme conscious living entity, pure soul. There's no tinge of matter in Krishna. But it can be proportionally covered by the material energy, by the modes of nature. And in the human form, it's most uncovered. But we can cover it again. If we choose to ignore the truths of the Bhagavad-gītā and so forth, then we can act on a very materialistic platform, and our conscience becomes covered. So much so that these things are not even interesting. I'm too busy trying to manipulate the material energy for enjoyment and avoid the dangers, and I'm involved in that. Right. So that's the idea.
Okay, thank you.
Natalie?
Yeah, my question is regarding, is there a meaning behind why he had 4 hands and then it changed to 2 hands?
The spiritual world is vast. We speak of the word Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha means the place free of all anxiety. Isn't that what characterizes this world? Yeah. So much of our life is trying to forget those things that are causing us anxiety, but anxiety still crops up again, right? So you can imagine a place where there's no anxiety. Everyone's living harmoniously. That's Vaikuntha. Now, in some cases, we should understand that Goloka Vrindavan, which is the supreme spiritual planet where Krishna lives with the 2 hands, and the gopis and the gopas and the cows, that's his original abode. But there's also many other Vaikuntha planets in which Krishna doesn't manifest that form. He's manifesting the form that's obviously God. That is, he has the chakra, and he has the lotus, and the conch, and the one more, the club. Thank you. So there's 2 weapons there, and there's 2 that are blessing: the conch and the lotus of the devotees, and the club and the chakra, for the demons. So that's somewhat of an awe-inspiring manifestation of God. It's not the manifestation of God that's going to run and frolic in the forest with the cowherd boys. For that, Krishna shows his original form, which is ever youthful and playful, and really enjoying this exchange of love with his friends and with the gopis and with his parents and with the cows and with the trees. They're all completely conscious. In that world, the trees are as conscious or more conscious than we are now in our human form. But they prefer to serve Krishna as trees. They give fruits, they're kalpavriksha, they can give any fruit at any time, there's whole science to it. So it's interesting because many people in India think Narayan must be the supreme God, he has more hands than Krishna. But no, the two-handed Krishna, Narayan doesn't play the flute. He doesn't dance with the gopis. He's the rasa is servitorship, is that everyone knows this is God, and they worship him. But interestingly enough, everyone else also has four hands, but they don't have those weapons. They don't have those items. But there's a kind of a official, servant and master mood, which is blissful, but not as blissful as if you could be Krishna's friend. You see, like that. So there's a hierarchy there, and it's interesting that the original form is the Krishna form, and the expansion of Krishna is the Narayan form, and then there are other forms, unlimited. Like we just celebrated Varaha, where Krishna appeared in a special form as a boar to perform a special function. It's not that he was a boar, but he needed to root out the earth that's fallen into the Garbhodak ocean and save the earth, so he had that form. And Nrsingadev, is not normally considered an all-attractive form. He's very ferocious, but he appeared in a half-man, half-lion form for a specific reason, to annihilate a big demon, So these are called Leela avatars. It's a whole science of it. But the chanting of Hare Krishna is a door to open all the understanding for all these things. Okay. All right, let's read the next verse, which is very important. Oh yes, please. You can ask a question.
So what you were saying about like lower life forms having more rudimentary consciousness.
Yes.
Is it the consciousness itself that's more rudimentary, or is it rudimentary because of like the limited form that it exists in?
Yeah, the consciousness is more covered. In other words, we consider it like a different degrees of covering. The human form were the least covered, and even in the human form, you can become even more uncovered. So it means that yes, there's an irreducible conscious living entity. We're all equal on that plane, and it's manifest through your mind and intelligence. Your consciousness is manifested in relation to this world. So now that can clearly be of great varieties. The insects, they have a very rudimentary intelligence, but mostly they're operating on instinct. They're getting direct information from the super soul. There's a whole science to it. But they're not considering, should I or should I not go, No, it happens automatically. So, but human beings, we can deliberate more. It's the higher intelligence, where we can actually think about these things, ultimate philosophical questions. The animals, it's not an issue for them, There's just like, where's food, where's the opposite sex, where's safety, and when they get, after doing all that, they get exhausted, where's a good place I can curl up and sleep for a while, and then next day, the same thing. You know what I mean?
Seems kind of easy, right?
Yeah, but the thing that's amazing, that's kind of jaw-dropping, is we've all been through that situation, and we've come by great fortune now into the human form. Now we should continue to develop our consciousness. And the wonderful thing is that even if you're not able to complete the course, so to speak, in Krishna consciousness, you don't lose anything. Just you sitting here for this one class. I don't know if maybe you've been in other classes, other temples.
Time here.
Yeah. Then you're going to have a human form. Even if you do nothing else, you'll still get a form and come back to class in the next life. To read the next chapter.
Right.
No loss, no diminution. This is the words of Krishna. Whereas in the material world, hey, Bill Gates and what's that other guy, Elon Musk, billions of dollars. It's all being taken away. We're much more fortunate than they are, because could you imagine how attached you are to that kind of power and wealth, And then you get embarrassed. You lose $40 billion in 2 days. Oh my God, that. Whereas if you got nothing, you got nothing to lose. Wasn't that a great wise person who said something like that? Yes, it's insane. Oh, freeze my brain, so you can bring it back. It's insanity. No, the actual chance for immortality, we're all immortal, but we don't know it. We keep going around and we start again in next life. But to really be in our original body, that's given in Krishna consciousness. We're in a much better situation than these billionaires. They're completely buried by their identification with their money and all the effort they got to make. They've even done studies. People who win the lottery, suddenly some ordinary Joe on the factory line gets $10 million. They're much more miserable. They've done essays. Yeah, I had all these relatives I didn't even know I had. They've been bothering me, and lawsuits, and oh my God, I lost all my friends. Money is not going to make you happy. Now, if you can use the wealth for service to Krishna, and that's very auspicious. But the idea is that the more that we can turn our attention and learn about Krishna and God and our own divine destiny, the more peace and happiness we can have. Even as you get older and the end comes. I mean, I'm 75. I've been in this movement 50 years. Next month, 50 years. And I boy, am I fortunate, I'm not depending on this failing body to try to squeeze out some, sense pleasure, The Hare Krishna mantra is ever fresh. There's no loss, no diminution, And then there's all of these incredible creations in sound. Sound is a real thing. And I'll give you a sample. Just one sample of a beautiful creation, a verse. Maduram maduram vapadasya vibhor. Maduram maduram vadanam maduram. Madugandhi madusmita meta daho. Maduram 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 maduram. Now the word maduram means sweet. So this is believe it or not, this is an author who was very advanced. His name was Bilba Mangal Thakur. He lived hundreds of years ago. And he was blind, but he was still a great poet, and he was able to, through assistance, he was able to write all this poetry. And this is from a book called the Krishna Karnamrita, which means this book is nectar for Krishna's ears. He was so intimate with Krishna that he would write, but Krishna was right there, so he knew that this is a pleasing verse for Krishna. He could actually say, this is nectar for Krishna's ears. So what this verse means, I put it into a little poem. You'll see when the curtains open, the beauty of Krishna. Sweet, sweet is my dear Lord's form. Sweet is still his face so fair. But his honey-scented gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. And this, Krishna embodies the beauty, extraordinary beauty that we have, just hints of which we can experience in this world. So that's just one verse. There's many others which I won't get into right now. But this is actually what Krishna is looking for. He's looking for our awakening, our natural, inherent love for Him, and then the more that we express that and feel that, He reveals Himself proportionally. And that's what He's going to say in the next verse. Should we go on? Just one more verse? Is it okay? Okay. Text 54. Bhaktya tunannaya shakya aham evam vidorjuna gatum drashtum cha tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa. My dear Arjun, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. Now this is quite an extensive purport here. It might take us, well, let's see how far we get. Purport. Krishna can be understood only by the process of undivided devotional service. He explicitly explains this in this verse so that unauthorized commentators who try to understand the Bhagavad-gītā by the speculative process will know that they are simply wasting their time. No one can understand Krishna or how he came from parents in a four-handed form and at once changed himself into a two-handed form. These things are very difficult to understand by study of the Vedas or by philosophical speculation. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that no one can see him or enter into understanding of these matters. Those who, however, are very experienced students of Vedic literature can learn about him from the Vedic literature in so many ways. There are so many rules and regulations, and if one at all wants to understand Krishna, he must follow the regulative principles described in the authoritative literature. One can perform penance in accordance with those principles. For example, to undergo serious penances, one may observe fasting on Janmashtami, the day on which Krishna appeared. and on the 2 days of Ekadashi, the 11th day after the new moon and the 11th day after the full moon. As far as charity is concerned, it is plain that charity should be given to the devotees of Krishna who are engaged in his devotional service to spread the Krishna philosophy or Krishna consciousness throughout the world. Krishna consciousness is a benediction to humanity. Lord Chaitanya was appreciated by Rupa Goswami as the most munificent man of charity because love of Krishna, which is very difficult to achieve, was distributed freely by him. So if one gives some amount of his money to persons involved in distributing Krishna consciousness, that charity given to spread Krishna consciousness is the greatest charity in the world. And if one worships as prescribed in the temples in India, there is always some statue, usually of Vishnu or Krishna. That is a chance to progress by offering worship and respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For the beginners in devotional service to the Lord, temple worship is essential, and this is confirmed in the Vedic literature, Shvedashvatara Upanishad 6.23. Yasya deve para bhakti yata deve tathagarao tasyaite katithayartha prakashante mahatmanaha. One who has unflinching devotion for the Supreme Lord and is directed by the spiritual master, in whom he has similar unflinching faith, can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead by revelation. One cannot understand Krishna by mental speculation. For one who does not take personal training under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, it is impossible to even begin to understand Krishna. The word tu is specifically used here to indicate that no other process can be used, can be recommended, or can be successful in understanding Krishna. The personal forms of Krishna, the two-handed form and the four-handed, are described as sudurdarsham, very difficult to see. They are completely different from the temporary universal form shown to Arjuna. The four-handed form of Narayan and the two-handed form of Krishna are eternal and transcendental, whereas the universal form exhibited to Arjuna is temporary. The words Tvananyena Nadrishta Purvam, text 47, state that before Arjuna, no one had seen that universal form. Also, they suggest that amongst the devotees, there was no necessity of showing it. That form was exhibited by Krishna at the request of Arjuna, so that in the future, when one represents himself as an incarnation of God, people can ask to see his universal form. The word na, used repeatedly in the previous verse, indicates that one should not be very much proud of such credentials as an academic education in Vedic literature. One must take to the devotional service of Krishna. Only then can one attempt to write commentaries on the Bhagavad-gītā. Krishna changes from the universal form to the four-handed form of Narayan and then to his own natural form of two hands. This indicates that the four-handed forms and other forms mentioned in Vedic literature are all emanations of the original two-handed Krishna. He is the origin of all emanations. Krishna is distinct even from these forms, what to speak of the impersonal conception. As far as the four-handed forms of Krishna are concerned, it is stated clearly that even the most identical four-handed form of Krishna, which is known as Mahavishnu, who is lying on the cosmic ocean and from whose breathing so many innumerable universes are passing out and entering, is also an expansion of the Supreme Lord, as stated in the Brahma Samhita 548. Yasyaika nishvatita kala matavalambhya jivandi loma valajaja gadannanataha Vishnu mahan siyasya kala vishesho govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. The Mahavishnu, into whom all the innumerable universes enter and from whom they come forth again simply by his breathing process, is a plenary expansion of Krishna. Therefore I worship Govinda, Krishna, the cause of all causes. Therefore, one should conclusively worship the personal form of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has eternal bliss and knowledge. He is the source of all forms of Vishnu. He is the source of all forms of incarnation, and he is the original Supreme Personality, as confirmed in the Bhagavad-gītā. In the Vedic literature, the Gopaltapani Upanishad 1.1, the following statement appears: Satchidananda Rupaya Krishna Klishta Krishnaya Klishtakarine Namo Vedanta Vedaya Gurave Buddhi Sakshine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Krishna, who has a transcendental form of bliss, eternity, and knowledge. I offer my respect to him because understanding him means understanding the Vedas, and he is therefore the supreme spiritual master. Then it is said, Krishna vai padamam daivatam. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Gopal Tapani Upanishad 1.3. Eko vashi sarvaga Krishna idya eko pisan bahodayo vabhati. That one Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is worshipable. Although he is one, he is manifested in unlimited forms and expanded incarnations. Gopal Tapani Upanishad 1.21. The Brahma Samhita 5.1 says, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchid Ananda Vigraha Anadir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna, who has a body of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. He has no beginning, for he is the beginning of everything. He is the cause of all causes. In the Vishnu Purana 4.11.4 it is said, Yatra Vatirnam Krishnakyam Padam Brahma Narakriti. The Supreme Absolute Truth is a person. His name is Krishna, and he sometimes descends to this earth. Similarly, in Srimad Bhagavatam, we find a description of all kinds of incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in this list, the name of Krishna also appears. But then it is said that this Krishna is not an incarnation of God, but is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Ete chang sakala pungsa, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Similarly, in the Bhagavad-gītā, the Lord says, Mattak paratanang nanyat. There is nothing superior to my form as the personality of Godhead, Krishna. He also says elsewhere in the Gita, Aham Adi Devanam, I am the origin of all the demigods. And after understanding the Bhagavad Gita from Krishna, Arjuna also confirms this in the following words, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. I now fully understand that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, and that you are the refuge of everything. Therefore, the universal form which Krishna showed to Arjuna is not the original form of God. The original is the Krishna form. The universal form, with its thousands and thousands of heads and hands, is manifest just to draw the attention of those who have no love for God. It is not God's original form. The universal form is not attractive for pure devotees who are in love with the Lord in different transcendental relationships. The Supreme Godhead exchanges transcendental love in his original form of Krishna. Therefore, to Arjuna, who was so intimately related with Krishna in friendship, this form of the universal manifestation was not pleasing. Rather, it was fearful. Arjuna, who was a constant companion of Krishna's, must have had transcendental eyes. He was not an ordinary man. Therefore, he was not captivated by the universal form. This form may seem wonderful to persons who are involved in elevating themselves by fruitive activities, but to persons who are engaged in devotional service, the two-handed form of Krishna is the most dear. So I'm going to leave this last verse for tomorrow. This verse, as is said in the second sentence of the purport, therefore this verse is considered to be the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. So it's very important we leave enough time for that verse. And this purport is full of all kinds of quotes. I know these are also given by the commentators like Vishnu Chakravarti or Baladev. And it's a very significant point that's being made here that that I can be understood only by the process of bhakti. Krishna responds to devotion. Just like he says in the previous in the 9th chapter, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam Yome Bhakti Apayachati. He's saying how we can offer food to him. And he says, okay, just a leaf, a fruit, a flower, some water, something like that. Simple. Anyone can do it. But he will accept it only if it's offered with devotion. That devotion is the key. That's what he's really looking for. And we think about it, that's really what we value in this world. You can have so much money, but if we're sitting alone in a big mansion somewhere and everyone hates us because we cheated them out of all the money, life is worse than miserable. They've done studies. Where is the greatest happiness quotient? Where are people happiness? And I think one year, I don't know if it was last year, but they said Bangladesh. People are it's not very. They don't have much money or anything, but they have very strong family ties. And it's the relationships that make things happy. And whereas, I don't know, if you're always at war with your environment and you don't have any social, you don't have any friends and everything, it's just, life is a nightmare, And that's one wonderful thing about Krishna consciousness, because as soon as you get a little serious, you find, I have all these friends. We're all doing the mantra, we're learning more about Krishna, and we're feeling ourselves being purified. And it's a wonderful community, worldwide. Srila Prabhupada came to America in 1965, all alone. He was elderly, he had like $7. Can you imagine going to a foreign country? $7 and really not sure where you're going to stay? At age 69. But he did this because he was inspired by his own guru and by Krishna himself within the heart. And even though he had 2 heart attacks coming across, not on the Queen Mary or a cruise ship, and not on an airplane, but on a cargo ship, which was really not suited for carrying passengers, but that's all he could afford, free. He did it for us. He did it because his spiritual master told him, try to spread this science in the Western world. And then in the following 11 years, it took off. He went around the world 14 times, I think 14 times, and had thousands and thousands of disciples, because he was giving the genuine thing. If you take to this process, you chant Hare Krishna, you follow the principles nicely, you soon feel that, not full measure of absolute ecstasy and bliss, but there's something happening. You feel yourself more peaceful, more joyful, and the process works. And so that's why it's still growing. Millions of these books that we're reading are going out. This book itself has been translated into 70 languages, different 70 languages around the world. And I had the great opportunity to help put these books together. So it's time we adjourn, but before we do, one more verse. This one where it says, okay, this is a little motto. So, everybody dies, every single body dies, but nobody dies. And it's kind of a play. Everybody dies, nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. That's the whole philosophy in a nutshell. Okay, all glory to Srila Prabhupada. We'll convene tomorrow, same time, same place, and we'll read this wonderful last verse of the chapter, the essence of the Bhagavad-gītā. Don't miss it. Hare Krishna.
Will we start devotional service, or will we just discuss the last?
Text 55. There's one more verse in this chapter.
Yeah, but,
Oh yeah, we'll go. Yeah, we should be able to. Yeah, we should. Yeah. I mean, we probably could give a whole class, foot class on that. But okay.